good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to At America, the U.S. Embassy's American Center. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Genara Jusuf, or you can call me Ara, and I'll be the MC for today. For those of you new here, At America is the U.S. Embassy's American Center, and our mission here is to provide a space for people to learn more about the United States through our programs, events, and also our facilities. Today's event is Protecting Our Environment, a commitment to present and future generations. But before we start, we have a social media questions for our online viewers. And the question is it true or false, governments and citizens promote environmental protection through policies and regulations? You can submit your answer on our social media platforms, and for those of you who can answer it correctly, will receive a live shout-out from us. And now let us hear an opening remarks from the Counselor for Economic Affairs of U.S. Embassy Jakarta. Please welcome Jonathan Habian.
Selamat siang semua. Ya, apa kabar? Baik ya? Oke. Terima kasih sudah datang ke At America hari ini langsung dan online. Perkenalkan, nama saya John Habian. Saya bekerja sebagai Counselor Ekonomi di Kedubes Amerika. Tahun ini adalah perayaan 75 tahun hubungan bilateral antara Amerika Serikat dan Indonesia. Isu-isu lingkungan adalah salah satu bagian terpenting di hubungan kami. Jadi saya senang sekali hari ini akan ada Randy Moore, Chief atau Kepala Forest Service Amerika Serikat, ya. Chief Randy dan saya baru dari Kalimantan Tengah, di mana lihat kegiatan lingkungan dalam Taman Nasional di sana dengan yang terhormat Menteri KLHK Siti Nurbaya. Chief Randy akan berbagi tentang isu-isu hutangan hari ini dengan kami kita. Ayo bertanya dan berdiskusi. Saya semoga kita bisa manfaatkan kesempatan ini bersama Chief Randy dan moderator kita Bu Meranti. So langsung saja saya mau sambut dan dengar dari Ibu Meranti. Ibu Meranti, silakan di panggungnya. And Chief Randy, would you please come to the stage, join us here? Let us please welcome Chief Randy. Thank you.
Halo, good afternoon, Sobat Amerika. Halo, hai, yang dari IPB, Institut Pertanian Bogor, mana suaranya? Yang dari Presiden University, mana suaranya? Oke, semangat ya hari ini ya. We are very excited today because we have Chief Moore here with us. So, my name is Miranti Zulkifli, and it's an honor for me to facilitate the discussion today with Chief Moore. Chief, how are you?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Okay, Chief, could you tell us why you are here in Indonesia this week, and what are the highlights of your trip? Thank you, Chief.
Yeah, thanks for that question. I'm actually here to sign the Memorandum of Understanding, the MOU, with the Ministry of Environment and Forestry. So we've spent this week, looking at different sites around Indonesia, just looking at some of the work that's taking place across the country, and looking for additional opportunities where we may partner, trying to address some of these global issues that we're facing across the world.
Thank you, Chief. Could you let us know which part of Indonesia that you've been traveled to in this past week?
So I'm going to try this. Kalimantan? Yes, and I think that was primarily it, right, in the central Kalimantan. And we looked at a number of restoration projects in the town, and to me, it was a really great example of community forestry, engaging the community in the resources around them in a sustainable way to sustain the community. And I thought it was just a wonderful example of how collaboratively we are responding to the challenges of our societies today.
Yes. Thank you, Chief. Collaboration is very important, yeah, Chief. Thank you. So, Sobat America, in today's discussion, we will have Mentimeters. So there will be some questions pop up here in the screen. And everyone here, audience, please join the game. Okay. Okay, so grab your phone and then scan this QR code. It will lead you to the first question of our Mentimeter session today. Okay. Is it here for the number of people who have been joining? So there have been only 4, is that correct? Oh, no? Okay. Oh, okay. So 38. Come on, everyone, join. We're expecting about 80 here. More than 80, please. 66, okay. 74, come on, everyone. Keep scanning. Is anyone having trouble? No? Aman? Aman? Okay. So let's go to the first question. What year was the U.S. Forest Service established? A, 1865, B, 1905, C, 1920, or D, 1956? You don't have to think too hard. You don't have to look up a Google first. Just click the answer that you feel right. It's okay. It's okay, all right? Okay, let's see. How many people have already answered? Okay, 74. Okay, so let's reveal the correct answer. Da-da-da-da-da-dum. The correct answer is 1905. Whoa! Good job. Okay. Chief, following to this question, Chief, I would like to ask you, why was the U.S. Forest Service initially established, and what were the agency's original goals? How do you see USF's role in inspiring and engaging today's generation to take an interest in biodiversity conservation? Please, Chief.
So let me first start by saying this is a very intelligent crowd, and you'll be able to see through me fairly quickly here. But that's correct, 1905 when the Forest Service was established. At the time, it was established for basically 2 primary reasons. One was to provide a sustainable flow of timber because the country was building itself, and it needed wood to help build the country, to build railroads, homes, buildings, and so on, and paper, so on and so on. And then the other purpose was to provide a sustainable flow of water. And that was what the Forest Service was all about in the beginning, and to some degree still is, but lesser of the wood production. Part of the problems that we see and that we've experienced is that sometimes we make decisions without looking into the future. You know, you don't make decisions for today, you make decisions for the future. And as we have made some decisions that was correcting a problem today, it created a lot of problems in the future, which we're facing now. And so it won't go into too much unless there's questions asked, unless you want me to, but don't know how deep of a dive you want me to go into the responses. But there's a lot more to that, and the challenge that we face in the U.S. today is because of this largely decisions we made in 1935.
Thank you, Chief. And how is USFS now trying to inspire and engage in today's generation, Chief? Is there any specific program or activities in USFS to engage more younger generation?
Yes, we're very actively recruiting young people into the Forest Service, and we also have a very active international programs, a part of why we're here now, having the ability to communicate with you. Some of the challenges we have in our world is global, and it's not any one country, because every country has problems and concerns, and we need to work together to address those concerns and challenges on a global scale. So that's one of the purposes there.
Yeah. Thank you, Chief. Okay, next we will have the second session for the Mentimeter. So everyone, Sobat America, grab again your cell phone. Okay, and we will see the next QR code here. Scan it again, and then you will see the next question. Okay, let's see. It was 74 before, now I expect 80 people. Okay, please. Everyone has a good signal here, right? Okay. Make a good use of your cell phone. Right, okay, it's about, now it's more than 70. We can go to the next question. We can see next. Okay. How many years has the USFS been collaborating on natural resource management with partners in Indonesia? A, 10 years, B, 30 years, C, 40 years, or D, 50 years. Again, you cannot look up at Google because there will be no answer there in Google, so just click the answer that you feel right, okay? No pressure. All right, let's see. Okay, seems like the polling is still going on. Okay, let's stop here. And the correct answer is 30 years, okay? Who get the right answer here? Oh, good job, good guess. For students, good guess, and not for USFS team. All right, Chief, can you share to us what are some common challenges faced by both the US and Indonesia in preserving their forests, Chief?
So some of the biggest challenges I think we're facing globally has to do with climate change. We are having a drought induced changes on our environment. We're having disease and insects that's just multiplying, taking advantage of weakened vegetation and spreading disaster. We have dirty air, and we're trying to pursue and need to pursue carbon, and how do we sequester carbon to clean the environment up. These are all new frontiers that we are beginning to explore, I think, on a global way, the things that we can be doing. And here again, youth play a major role in how and what we do. And again, our intent is to engage youth in these decisions, give them some authority, not just a job, but some authority with that job, and allow them to make mistakes with the intention of moving forward. What we don't want is the same mistakes made over and over, but it's okay to make mistakes because a lot of what we're dealing with is unknown. We have not dealt with this before. And so, to some degree, we're going to be exploring answers, even though we know a lot already on what we can do, particularly in the United States, where we have major problems with wildfires.
Thank you, Chief. Well, I really like the statement from Chief Moore. It's okay to make mistake, but don't make the same mistake over and over again, right, Chief?
Right.
Yeah. So especially here, there are like a lot of young people here. So it's okay to make mistakes, but please learn from the past experience. And we aim for preserving our forest here. Okay. So, are you ready for the third session of Mentimeter? I see they are already, Chief. They already grabbed their cell phone. They know what to do now. I don't have to tell them. So yeah, scan the QR code here. Okay, still waiting. Is everyone okay here? Okay. All right, I think it just needs to be refreshed, the bottom here, because still only 3 people joining. I guess it's already okay, right? Okay, all right. So let's see the third question. Da-da-da-dum. Okay. What is the added pressure on forests caused by climate change? A, increased risk and severity of wildfire. B, shifts in ecosystem dynamics. C, changing weather patterns. Or D, all of the above. I'm not sure if you can change your question. I'm not sure if you can change your answer when you already click, but that's okay. All right, that's okay. Just like what you said, it's okay to make mistake, okay? That's okay. All right, so I think everyone has already answered the question, and the correct answer is all of the above. Congratulations. Good job, crowd. Good job, good job. Okay. So, Chief, just like you already mentioned about how the climate change actually affects our lives and our forests and our environment, how has the climate change affected the activities and management approach of USFS? How does the USFS promote diversity and inclusion in its approach?
Yeah, thank you. So part of the problem is that because of climate change, and there's a number of things, it's almost like the perfect storm coming together. And we start with changes in the climate that brought about disease and insects. That also brought about drought, which induced and exacerbated the issues. And right now, particularly in the United States, I was in California before I moved as the chief's job. And there, as an example, we had about 50 million trees that had died from disease and insects from drought. And so the problem, though, is that you can't really try and get rid of the bugs because they have always been there and they will always be there. But bugs are opportunistic. And when a tree gets weak, bugs take advantage of that so that they can multiply and kill that tree. Whereas a healthy tree produces sap to keep the bugs from going into the tree. And so when you have those types of conditions coming together, you have a weakened ecosystems and bugs move in. And when bugs move in, particularly if you have a fire-adapted ecosystem, which we do in many parts of the western part of the U.S., fires take place. Because you have dry and dead vegetation, fires burn so hot that it destroys the seed source for the trees to come back behind it in some cases. And so we have a real problem that's exacerbated. The other addition is that the United States has grown. When we made a lot of those decisions, it probably was about 200 million people. There's 330 million people now. And what that means is that you have an explosion of homes into the wildland-urban interface. And so now when these fires burn, they not only burn the trees, they also burn down communities. They also kill lives. And it's a major, major issue that we're trying to face. And so this past year, our Biden administration, with the help of Congress, passed 2 pieces of legislation. And those pieces of legislation asked us to do 2 things. One was develop a strategy. And so this strategy is called the Wildfire Crisis Strategy. And then the second piece was the Inflation Reduction Act, which really looked at working collaboratively with partners and the communities for solutions and answers. It used to be that the government, Forest Service, we would meet internally and we would come up with the answer. And because we were required to do public involvement, we would say, what do you think about what we think? And now we made a subtle shift that's making a big difference. We're saying, why don't we sit down and talk about what needs to happen? And when we changed that approach, we took more of a collaborative approach with the communities and others, NGOs as an example, and others, to look at deciding collectively and together about what needs to happen first of all, and then how do we go about making it happen. And what we're finding is that when we all come together to try and address a challenge, then we can leverage our resources and we get more work done by leveraging our resources and engage in the community into solutions to these challenges.
Thank you, Chief Moore. Wow. It must be challenging in the beginning to transition to the collaborative approach, but I believe using the collaborative approach, it will have longer and more sustainable impact to the society and also to our environment as well. Thank you, Chief, for your answer. And we will move to the next Mentimeter session. If you pay attention to what Chief Moore has already explained, you must know the answer for the next question, okay? So, again, scan the QR code. Let's see. Is everyone okay? Already? Okay, can we reveal the question, please? Okay. What management activity is allocated the largest budget in the U.S. Forest Service? Bahasa Indonesia. A, fire, B, timber, C, agriculture, or D, recreation. Okay, I already gave you the clue for the answer, so I expect more people can have the right answer this time. Okay, all right, and the correct answer is fire. Okay, good job. So far, we have already 4 questions, and most of you already answered correct answers. So, good job, crowd. All right, Chief, you just mentioned about the wildfire, but can I ask you again about what is like you already mentioned about the strategy, how it changed over time. You transition to the collaborative approach. Can you tell us more about the frontliners, like the forest firefighters? How about them, the U.S. forest firefighter, their role and qualifications to become a firefighter? Just like in Indonesia, we also experience forest and land use fires, and the forest firefighter are our frontliners. But we would love to learn from U.S. Forest Service what kind of qualifications, skill or training or experience they need to have for them to safely conduct their mission. Thank you, Chief.
Great, thank you. So like most things, there's qualifications and certifications that the firefighters go through in order to be qualified. And there's 3 primary layers of firefighters. One is the regular firefighter, that person on the ground doing the day-to-day types of fire suppression activities. Our firefighters also look at prescribed fire because in some ecosystems, it needs fire to maintain its integrity. So firefighter. The second level up from a firefighter is a hotshot firefighter. And those have more expertise. They have more experience in these fires, and they go into what we would consider to be tougher fires to put out where your knowledge sometimes will save your life in certain conditions. And then there's a third level that we call them smoke jumpers. They're the ones that parachute out of a plane into remote areas to put fires out. What we have a number of times in the remote areas, you may have a lightning strike, and a lightning will hit one single tree. But if you don't put that fire out or put that tree down, you know, it could start a huge forest fire. And so we have different levels of firefighters for different activities within it. Now, one of the things that we've noticed is that sometimes when we put our smoke jumpers out into these situations, we have to be very careful because when a tree is burning from inside, it's weak, particularly at the top. And if you're chainsawing down at the bottom of a tree, a limb can fall out of the top of the tree and kill the firefighters. And we've had those situations happen a number of times. And so we have to always be careful to look at the situations, the conditions, and then safety is our top priority for firefighting activities. And so we can go into more detail. I'll see if you're interested in that, and we can respond accordingly there. The other thing that we're doing, though, is we had a nasty fire down in New Mexico 2 years ago. That fire burned through a number of communities, and it really destroyed a lot of homes and the way of life for many people. And it started from a prescribed burn. But now the climate change has changed the conditions so much that when you look at the facts behind that fire had snow on it once and it had rain on it twice. Normally, we would consider that fire contained and put out. But what happens because of climate change and because of the increased temperatures, that fire was still burning in the root system underneath the ground. And when the conditions on top of the ground got right, that fire moved laterally across and came outside of the containment lines and reignited. And it started a huge fire. That's not the only place that's happening. We're finding that all across many places across the U.S. And so we're patrolling areas a lot longer now because we know that when the conditions are right, that fire is not necessarily always put out. Just on the surface it is, but sometimes it burns through the root system. You have a lot of that here with your peat ecosystems, where you have to be very careful about whether a fire is contained or not, and then how do you patrol it, and then how do you manage, how do you align your resources around those conditions. And that's very important because it can make the difference in a big area burning or you containing it to a smaller area.
Thank you, Chief. Well, no wonder the budget allocation for fire is very large, right, Chief? Just like the question in our Mentimeter before. Yeah, thank you, Chief. But just to clarify again, so the first level is regular,
Firefighter.
and then the second one, hot shot
crews.
And then the third one is smoke
jumpers.
Smoke jumpers, okay. I hope everyone is taking notes here. Do you have your notes with you? Yes? Okay, before going on to the next Mentimeter session, I want to let you know that we will have a Q&A session later on with Chief Moore. So everyone, take your time to write down your question and then be ready for the next Q&A session. You can have the golden opportunity to ask Chief Moore directly. Okay, so let's move to the next Mentimeter session. We can reveal this QR code here. Okay, grab your cell phone again. Don't take picture of me, just take picture of the QR, okay? Just scan the QR code there. All right, let's see. Everyone okay? Okay, can we go to the next question, please, on the screen? How many countries does the USFS international programs work in? A, 37 countries, B, 66 countries, C, 93 countries, and D, 151 countries. Okay, it's okay to make mistake. Just click the answer that you feel right. It's okay. Don't ask the person next to you. That's okay. Okay, I see. Wow, it's quite a tight answer here from B, C, and D. All right. The correct answer is 93 countries. Okay, I want to see who has answered it right. Oh, good job. Good guess, actually. Good guess. Okay, Chief, the question is about the USFS international programs. What is actually USFS International Programs Office, and how do you work internationally? Do you have any exchange opportunities for international experts or like students to see the work in USFS firsthand? Thank you, Chief.
Yeah.
I believe it's an exciting question for these students here.
Yeah, it is. And I have an example here where a part of our staff in Indonesia, we have 2 here, but we also have local Indonesians also on staff. And one of the reasons, it's not like, we're from America and we're here to save you. That's not what we're about. What we're saying is, look, we have some knowledge to share with you. We also think that you have some knowledge that you can share with us. And as we work together on these global issues, we can learn from each other, and we could do better in terms of confronting some of these challenges we have that are global in scope. Indonesia, in and of itself, sits in a very important strategic place in terms of the impact and the implications it could have on addressing some of these really, really tough issues that the world is dealing with. And so it's in Indonesia's best interest, it's in the United States' best interest to collaborate, to share knowledge, to look at how we can work with each other, leverage all of our abilities to address some of these emerging issues, some of the issues that are already here, And one of the ways we want to do that by also, again, this is going to be a theme you hear from me, but it's engaging our youth. Because, like I said, when I first started this, we have to make decisions for the out years. And if we're going to do that, we need to engage you into what we are trying to accomplish, but also invite you and to give you a role in helping us. You understand what we're doing, but then you take it from there and bring yourself into that job and your interests and your motivations, because that's how we get better over time. It's not trying to do the same thing forever, but it's doing the same thing, learning what we need to do, because the environment around us changes all the time. And so what's working today is not going to work 10 years from now. And so that's why we need you to bring yourselves into this and not try to be like someone else. Be yourself. Understand someone else, but be you. I think the change and the growth is authentic when we can do that. And so I invite you to engage, be a part of trying to be a solution.
Thank you, Chief. So the keyword is shared knowledge, right, yes. Chief? When we travel to United States, when we learn from U.S. Forest Service, we actually learn both ways, right, Chief?
Right.
Right.
And
I think I really like the be you, right? Sometimes we kind of like, okay, what we need to do? How do we need to do it? But the most important is just be you, be yourself, do the job, learn from the experts, learn from the other people, and then just be you. Chief, before moving to the Q&A session, I would like to have your final thought, actually. What advice, as I be you again, would you give to young people to help them become successful future climate leaders?
You know, I've learned over time, advice is fairly cheap. And everyone has advice, just like everyone has opinions. I think what we need to focus on is what are the challenges that we're trying to address? How can I talk to you about what I know, but how do I also encourage you to take what I know and further it? How do I continually engage with you on some of these issues? And one way is to spend time with you. One way is to help you grow. One way is if you can't afford college or some of those things, we have programs where we help young people go to college. We also have a number of programs just reaching out into the communities, because not everyone has the same opportunities. There are some that have more opportunities, and what we want to do is look at justice and equality in our education, justice and equality in our knowledge, justice and equality and opportunities that we're giving to all of our young people, not just the ones who have the opportunity. We want to create opportunities for those who don't have that opportunity as well. And so that's why when we look at our youth, what's really important is your motivation, your passion, your commitment, and are you doing what you need to do to educate yourself and to better yourself? Are you practicing what you believe? And then how do I have a conversation with you to say, what are your goals? Because we're talking about firefighters here in fire, but do you know that's only one piece of that program? You need pilots. You need people that work in helicopters and airplanes. You need contracting officers. You need financial management. You need accountants. You need computer specialists. All of that is what makes firefighting work. So it's not just a firefighter, and it's not just a hotshot crew or smoke jumper. It's all of the things that make that successful. And so I want you to know that when it comes to fire, it's not one job, it's many jobs in order to be successful in suppressing that, but also managing fire, because it's not just about fighting fire. Sometimes I think that's the wrong word, because what it says is that we're going to fight something when sometimes fire could be good for the environment. So you don't fight fire. And I could just give you one example on that. And I mentioned earlier in the beginning, the chief at the time in 1935 made the decision to put all fires out within the first 24 hours of their start. And we call that the 10 a.m. policy. And so we got very good at putting fires out within the first 24 hours. In fact, our success rate is about 98%. And so all of the fires that you see in the United States, that's the 2% that get away and go into big fires. Now, what we didn't understand at the time is that we wanted to put the fire out because, remember, the purpose for our existence was to provide a sustainable flow of wood and water. And in order to continue to provide that wood, we had to put the fires out because it was destroying the trees that was needed to build homes and railroads and all of that stuff. So that decision was made for that. Now, what we did not know and what we did not take in consideration is that before the U.S. was colonized, the Indians were using fire, and because they used fire, they created these fire-adapted ecosystems where they put plenty of fires in there because they managed them for forest products that they lived on. And what happened is that when we took fire to ecosystem, we changed it over time. So the last 80 years has really been about dealing with that decision then. Now there's other things that contributed to that, but that's the principal piece here. And so what we're doing now is that we've taken what we call indigenous traditional ecological knowledge. That's what the tribes, the Indians, use and how they adopt these systems. But we also have Western science. And up until recently, you know, we've been looking, we call it two eyes seeing. Basically, one eye is Western science, the other eye is traditional ecological knowledge. So we're looking with two eyes rather than the one eye. And we think we're going to have more of a holistic approach to how we address the changes in our environment. So here again, there's more to that, much more, but I know we've got a set amount of time for things, but it's really interesting how we make decisions without looking at the entire picture, but just a part of the current. Right. But here again, wood innovation, I said I was going to stop, didn't I? But you know, you have infrastructure set up for the old way of doing business, you know, the large trees that was providing all the products. Because of that decision, what you have now is small diameter, low value trees. That the infrastructure that this country was built on cannot support the small diameter, low value wood. And so we're looking at wood innovations, biochar, biofuel, cross-laminated timber, CLT, what we refer to it, nanocellulose material, which strengthens material. And so as we look at transitioning, and this is where you all come in, as we transition into this future, there's different innovations and different uses for wood. And so now how do we transition to something without having too much of a negative impact on the status quo? Because that's where the politics, the problems, and the challenges come in. It's not you don't just change because there's too much disruption in the system. We have to transition to that. And I think that this is where you really come into hand. How do we do that? That's the question for you. I'd like for you to meditate on that or think about that. How do a country or a community transition to something different rather than just making a dramatic shift?
Thank you, Chief Moore. Well, very good advice, Chief Moore, not just for them, but also for me. Motivation, passion, and our commitment to our environment, to our forest, to our earth here. And it takes a holistic approach to eyes in, and also what I learned from you is multidiscipline. It's not just about forestry, but we also need a lot of knowledge from others as well, especially from the traditional knowledge too. Thank you, Chief. So we still have some time for our Q&A session. We also have viewers online here, but I would give the golden opportunity for the audience on site first. Who would like to have to give a question to Chief Moore? Raise your hand. Okay, I saw this gentleman first, so yes, please. Could you please give us your name and your university and then your question to Chief Moore?
Okay, thank you so much for the opportunity. So my name is Marcel. I'm from Institut Pertanian Bogor Agricultural University. And I want to emphasize on two questions, but first of all, I noticed that you said things about how bugs and urban explosion kind of took over the forest and it caused forest fires too. But I want to ask, I mean, as we know, expansion of big corporations, such as that of manufacturing or big pharma, it really impacts negatively on the environment. Now, I don't want to be a hypocrite. I use these products from manufacturing companies, but I want to know what the USFS did, and already did to make sure that you guys take a collaborative approach to tackle this problem. And my second question is, how can we as a student, currently, with the limited scope that we have, limited scope of influence, how can we contribute to making sure that these problems of protecting our environment can be achieved? Thank you.
Thanks. Really good question. So, there's no one way to approach this issue. And, we are where we are for a lot of different reasons. So when you have your factories in place, you have, in many cases, pollution taking place. There's a number of things that can, should, and need to happen. One, we need to look at regulations for what's really going on so you can look at having some kind of limits on the amount and the types of pollution that's taking place. Secondly, let's just say that that's a given. Now, what do we do? I mean, the facility is there. It's done what it's going to do. It's probably still doing it. But what can I do? And I think that's where the whole place around carbon sequestration comes in. That's one. That's not the only solution. That's one potential response to what we see here. And now, how do we manage carbon? And how do we do it in a consistent manner? Because, the world is full of smart people. And because the world is full of smart people, everyone comes up with things that benefit their perspective or their ideal. But it doesn't really address the issue entirely. What it does, it addresses their agenda. And to give you an example, if I come up with a way to capture carbon, it's going to be to benefit what I'm interested in, where I'm getting paid. But let's just say that if we brought all of those entities together and say, why don't we come up with a standard and a consistent way for how we calculate carbon? Because this is a growing area. It's a trend that's building. It's going to continue to get big. And if we are not engaged in this and learning about this carbon market, we're going to find ourselves playing catch up, and we're going to find ourselves responding to issues rather than being, solution oriented to these issues. And what I mean by that is, let's just say that some entities develop a cap and trade system for carbon. Well, how do we play on a cap and trade system? What's the rules? What's the standard? Well, we have to create that. What are those policies around forestry? What are those policies around agriculture? What are those policies around peatland? What are the policies that's really important? And it's the dirty work, but that's the foundation of moving forward. And so how do you get interested in forest policy? How do you get interested in environmental policy? How do you get interested in all these things that serve as a foundation and a backbone for change and also for the future? Now, a cap and trade system, are you just trading carbon, or are you sequestering it? That's the first big decision that's got to be made. Now, in the United States, the federal government, we've already made the decision that we're not going to trade carbon. We're going to capture carbon. And we can still utilize and manage the forest in a sustainable way, because when you go in and you manage that forest, it's much like a garden. You have to cultivate it a bit. There's things happen, so you have to tend to it. Now, a forest is going to absorb carbon for so long, then it's going to stop and start emitting. And so how do you manage that? What's your silvicultural prescription for how you manage for carbon? And so that's the other thing, that when you look at managing a forest, you manage it by what we call silvicultural prescriptions. Does that prescription identify ways to maximize carbon sequestration? So if you cut a tree, you make furniture out of it, it's still captured. Now you plant another tree to absorb more carbon. And that's what I mean by how do you manage for the future and how do you manage for carbon? And we need young people to be thinking about these things now, because everything that I'm telling you is going to be outdated when you get to where I'm at. And so how do you take what's a trend, and then how do you move out on it? I'll give you an example. Climate change seems to be a trend right now, a legitimate one. But our scientists in the Forest Service actually won a Pulitzer Prize on climate change over 20 years ago. And that's what I mean by you have to be managing into the future, not for the problems that you have right now. And so as you engage in the environment, you need to know what's going on now, but you also always keep an eye. If I continue to do what I'm doing now, what's likely to happen? If the climate is changing now, how will it likely change? And how do I position my country, my community, whatever, to be prepared? And so we're going to need scientists. We're going to need policy writers. We're going to need legislators. We're going to need some of everybody to address the issues we have, and we have to do it collaboratively. Never forget about engaging the community in these issues that affects them. We have to. It's the only way to go. And so it's the only way to go now. Now, when you get to where I'm at, it may be a different way to go. You'll have to decide that, though. But for right now, we have to and we should engage the communities that we serve and the communities that are using these resources that are being affected by these changes and these challenges that we have.
Thank you, Chief. Before moving to the next question from the audience, I want to ask, are you guys still excited here? Okay, yeah, I want to hear your voice here. Yes? Okay. All right, so for the next question, who would like to give? Okay, I will give the opportunity from President University.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir, everyone, and my student, my teammates. So my question is...
Your name first, please.
My name?
Yes.
I'm Fitun Erikson. I'm from Environmental Engineering in President University and batching 2022. Yeah. So my question is there an alternative way to reduce the massive deforestation that is happening in the global or in the internationals? And I don't mean to be like hypocrite, but isn't it the case that the more population and the more land, the more population, and also we need more land, right? So we need also to build the residence, perhaps, or industry. So what's the solution? If we try to reduce the deforestation, because we need a lot of land, right? And also we need the residents. So yeah, questions.
So anyone that knows me knows what I'm about to say. None of you know me, so you don't know what I'm about to say. What do you think is the solution?
I mean, like, wait. My question here is tells that I don't mean to be like, in this case, isn't it the case that more populations, meaning we need more land use? So meaning that will also damage to the forest,
yeah,
right?
No, I understand it. I was asking you what was your opinion about the question that you're asking me. I'll still answer you, but I'm engaging you as a youth. Where are you on this issue? And then we would have a conversation around that. But you have to have an opinion, I think, if you would ask the question. But if not, I'll give you a response.
Do you have your own opinion about your own question? And then later on, Chief Mo will also answer.
I don't have any opinion about
Okay, all right.
So I think because for me, because if we strict the regulations only, I think it's not too good, right? Because there's a lot of deforestation happenings in the world.
Well, let's talk about deforestation. What's the definition? How do we use it? Because what I find is really challenging is that whose definition are you going to use for deforestation? Because depending on what you're interested in, that's how you define deforestation. I'll give you an example, and I'll just stick with the U.S. In the U.S., there are areas that are being so-called deforested if you look at the definition of timber being removed. But timber grows back. Also, our philosophy and our policy is multiple use. That means that how do you conserve and use the resources? And so when I look at the United States policy, I'm not deforesting on a permanent basis. I'm utilizing material to sustain, you know, my country, my communities. I am conserving it in a way where it's wise use. In fact, that's part of our mantra, it's wise use of our resources. We do have some agencies within the federal government that looks at preservation, you know, put lands aside. And we also have agencies like the Forest Service who have multiple uses for the lands that they manage. And I think when you look at this whole thing around deforestation, because I'm seeing it across the world, and it always depends on how do you define deforestation. And I think that's where we need to start. So how do we come together to define that in a way that allows freedom and flexibility to manage locally? You know, as the chief of the Forest Service, I look at the entire United States. And one of the things that, you know, we try to do is have consistency. But there's very few things that we can do that's going to fit everything across the United States. Because there's too much geographical differences, there's too many cultural differences, there's just too much differences, and there's not a one-size-fits-all. And so if you are going to engage the communities, how do you allow them to be who they are, but meet the leader's intent of what we're trying to do? But there's a lot of different ways of how you can achieve something. And I think we have to stop looking at trying to have one size that fits everything. It's just impossible. And so how do I give you my leader's intent, but allow you to do that in a way that fits your area, your geography? Now, that's what we're trying to do here in the U.S. within the U.S. Forest Service, and it's because you just, like I said, you cannot have a one-size-fits-all. It doesn't work. It only works for the person that's wanting you to do it that way, or the country that wants you to do it that way. And then there's so many different options. I would love to engage you in how do we sit down and talk about that issue? And then how do we agree on how we're going to move out on that? And we have to start from saying, it's possible that I could be wrong. It's possible that I don't know what I think I know. It's possible that there's other people that have different ideals and perhaps even a better ideal than what I have. And they have just as much knowledge and science to support their perspective and their opinion. How do we begin to sit down and facilitate differences? How do we do that? And I think a lot of that is underneath a lot of these discussions that we need to be having that's across countries, within countries, and differences in communities and across communities. And that's why, since I've been chief, I have not sent out any direction that says thou shalt. I say, here's our intent. Talk to me about how you're going to meet that intent.
Thank you, Chief Moore. Okay, we still have time, so okay. I haven't asked, and then someone already raised her hand. Sorry? Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes. Hello, and I'm Chid from President University. I would like to know, as you have mentioned before, we approach with 2I theory. I would like to know the role of indigenous people in U.S. conservation efforts and how they are. Could you also elaborate on how they are included? Thank you.
Thank you. You know, I had started out talking about how we were using traditional, indigenous knowledge. We call it TEK. And a part of it is that, you know, we pretty much went with science, Western science. And what we have, I don't know if it's a failure, but what we did not do was take in consideration how people that were there before now, how they were managing the land. And the traditional ecological knowledge or the indigenous knowledge, give you a real example. Out in the western part of the United States, when I look at we call it the ponderosa pine or a pine ecosystem out there, at that time when the indigenous people were managing that land, we had about 40 to 60 trees per acre. Today, we have anywhere between 600 and 800 trees per acre in many of those same locations. And what we have is a real problem. And so we can't fix the problem with just Western science alone. We have to take advantage of indigenous knowledge on what they were doing. And so if we want to get that ecological condition or the resilience or the integrity back into that system, we first have to remove some of the materials out there, because we cannot put a fire in many of those locations, because it would be, the fire behavior would be unmanageable. And so we are looking at trying to remove a lot of those trees, but there's no market, because remember, the infrastructure was set up for a different type of vegetation. And so now we have to create new markets through innovations, wood innovations, so that when we do remove that material, you can create jobs into these small rural communities that depend on that area. And so, and that's what I talked about, transitioning. And so how do we engage the community in what we are doing around their community? And that's why there's no easy solutions to a number of these issues without collaboratively looking at how we would approach that. And so there is a place for indigenous knowledge. There's certainly a place, a big place. There's also a place for science, other types of science. And so I think it's a matter of how do we collectively put the two together and move forward.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, next question I will ask from this side. Okay, please. Yes.
Good evening. My name is Cynthia from IPB University. First, I want to ask, because usually the large company tend to burn the fire on purpose, because it's a cheaper and easier way to compare to following proper procedure to open the land, so they can planting the oil palm trees, because I think they were concerned more on economy than the ecology. So is the strengthen the fire policy is the only best way to protect the forest fire from the forest fire problem, or we can do or we can have any solution beside the strengthen the forest fire policy?
Well, it depends on what you're, if I understand your question, it depends on what are you trying to achieve? What are you wanting to accomplish? And if it's managing the land in a sustainable way, there's a number of things you can take in consideration. In terms of fire, if you're having climate change or droughts here in Indonesia as an example, then what are the indicators that let you know that you're headed for trouble, you know, with fires as an example? And do I understand weather patterns? Do I understand how to manage smoke so when it does happen? Do I know how to do a number of things when it comes to addressing that? And so in terms of clearing it, the palms, I'm not familiar enough with maybe what you were specifically getting at, but just using an example of fire and how do you manage fire, we have to understand a lot of things like weather patterns, and based on what we know about weather patterns and how smoke is going to move when it does come in there, how do we prepare, how do we set our firefighters up so that if a fire does happen, that we can suppress it really quickly rather than letting it get out of hand. And so there's a number of things that would go into play on that, but if I understood your question, but if your question is around clearing land for palm oil, I'm not familiar with that enough to really respond to it.
Is it okay? Thank you. All right. I think we can still take questions. Anyone? Oke, Pak, silahkan.
Thank you, Mr. Randy. My name Jackson from apahabar.com, media online in Indonesia. I just want to ask, like you mentioned earlier about your visit to Central Kalimantan, would you explain what the you doing there and what the agreement with the Minister of Environmental and Forest, what the agreement the US and the Indonesia government that you result from their visit, and then the second question is what's your opinion about Kalimantan forest and how to reduce oil palm plantation, like you know. In Kalimantan, many plantation with oil palm, and that's I think it's to make forest could be more decreased. So, what your opinion about that? Thank you.
So on your last question, I don't have an opinion. I think that's an Indonesian question, and since I'm an American, I don't know how to answer the palm oil. I have no experience with palm oil and clearing that, and so that would not be appropriate for me to try to respond. The first question that you had to do with the purpose that we're here. We were here to sign the MOU with the minister, and in that, a part of what we want to try and achieve or accomplish in that MOU is preparing them for the FOLU 2030 plan. And so there's a number of actions in that MOU that we are agreeing to work toward. And we want to do it in a collaborative manner, and we can provide you with some of the more specifics in a different setting, but there's a number of things that's going to be identified in that. I would imagine the minister would be coming out with some type of media public notice about the specifics, the particulars of the MOU, but we feel Indonesia has been doing a really good job of managing the resources they have, and we have been learning quite a bit from each other. In fact, as I looked at the restoration that has been taking place on many locations, I think that there's lessons learned there for us to take back and share. I think when you look at reestablishing habitat for orangutans and rhinos and whatnot, I think that Indonesia is doing just a wonderful job of the work that it's doing. Is that how do we work together to magnify or multiply some of the efforts and the work that they're doing?
Okay. Thank you, Chief Moore. We have one last question. Okay, can you lower down your hand again? And I will ask 1, 2, 3, and then raise your hand, okay? No cheating. 1, 2, 3. Okay, you still go first.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Surya, and I'm from President University, batch 2023. So, United States, the biggest allocation is on forest fire, and one of the main causes of forest fire in United States is climate change. And also back then, Chief also talked about carbon capture, and carbon capture is one of the ways to mitigate climate change. So my question is how the United States planning and managing the transition to widespread carbon capture technology, given its role as United States as one of the largest carbon producers in the world. Thank you.
Yeah, it's you know, the thing about carbon is that it travels. And so even though there's a lot of carbon, you're right, that's produced through the U.S., there's carbon just about in every country that's being produced. And the temptation is to look at one source. And I would caution us against looking at any one particular source because it's a global issue. And it's a global issue because no matter where it comes from the same types of activities. And so how do we come together globally to address this issue. And you're right, carbon is one of those markets that's growing. Based on what we know right now, that's one of the most effective ways of trying to deal with this issue. But there's going to be other ways. Here again, I invite you all, help us explore other ways to address the pollution and the carbon that's taking place across all of our countries. Because what I can tell you is that what we know is what we know right now, but there's a lot that we don't know. And as we continue to deal with this issue, and it's going to outlive probably all of us, we're still going to need you as youth to engage in this activity and this issue, because it's too easy to point and say, you're the problem. What we need to do is say, let's sit down and talk about this. You know, here's what I think would be a good ideal. Tell me what your ideal is. And how do we agree on doing something for both of us to reduce what's taking place? Because no one, I certainly will not ever agree that this is a good thing, the pollution that's taking place. It's a matter of what do we do and how do we do it and how do we leverage funds. And, you know, I don't know, you monetize carbon, there's pros and cons to that, of course. So how do we approach it? I'd love to give you this as a homework assignment. You pursue it with vigor and energy, and then you come back and talk to me. What are your ideals? How do you want to contribute to this issue? You know, you're in college now. You're learning a lot. How do you put that to use? And how can I be of service to you?
Thank you, Chief. Okay, can we have a round of applause for Chief Moore? Thank you so much, Chief Moore. Perhaps I would just like to highlight a few takeaways from this conversation. First, collaborative approach. Chief Moore repeated that over and over again, so please bear in mind, collaborative approach. No solutions fits for all. So we have to look at more holistic approach, multidiscipline, take advantage of the indigenous knowledge as well. And for young generation, your role is very important in protecting our environment. So we need to have motivation, passion, commitment. Let's do more innovation, because what's solving today will not solve for the future. So we need to be more innovating over and over again. So thank you so much, Chief Moore. Thank you, Sobat America. Everyone gets a lot, right? Thank you, and I will hand over to Mbak Ara. Please, Mbak Ara.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining our event today. And also, I would like to thank our speaker and also moderator for the very insightful discussion. We hope that you guys can learn a lot from today's event. And earlier in this event, we had a social media quiz, and the question was, is it true or false governments and citizens promote environmental protection through policies and regulations? And the correct answer to that is true. One way that law is used to protect the environment is by enacting government regulations on pollution and preventing environmental degradation. Shout out goes out to @Saputra from Instagram for answering the question correctly. Thank you. Yes, and if you guys are interested in attending more events here in AdAmerica, don't forget to follow us on our social medias at @ATAmerica on Instagram, Twitter, and also Facebook, and also visit our website at www.atamerica.or.id. Once again, thank you so much to everyone for joining our event today. My name is Ara, and see you soon at the next AdAmerica event. Thank you, everyone. Oke, untuk teman-teman rekan media, dipersilakan untuk keluar ruangan.